story of the Black Knight begins way back in 1899. Nikola Tesla, an inventor from Croatia, announced he was receiving an electrical signal which appeared to be intelligent. The signal was clearly repeated periodically with such a clear suggestion of number and order. This led him to believe that the signal was extraterrestrial communication. At first, he assumed that they were originating from Mars. Later, he changed that opinion and stated in a conference that the signal was coming from somewhere else in space. Fast forward to the 1920s, and various ham radio operators began to receive strange coded messages. One ham radio enthusiast recorded the signal and claimed he deciphered it, saying that it was a star chart centered on the Epsilon Bootis star system. In 1928 in Holland and again in 1929 aboard a research vessel in the South China Sea, they were transmitting sounds over the radio. The return echoes were examined, and they were not as neatly spaced as had been sent. In fact, they were highly irregular, ranging from 1 to 30 seconds in delay time. At the time, the discrepancies were explained as fluctuations in the ionosphere, or magnetic disturbances, where the pitch or frequency of the sounds did not change, only the spacing of the echoes. In the 1970s, this mystery was carefully examined and deciphered by Duncan Lunan, a scientist from Scotland. He plotted a vertical axis of the transmitted pulse sequence with a horizontal axis of echo delay time. The result was once again a picture of the constellation Bootis as it would have looked 13,000 years ago. In May 1954, 2 newspapers were released claiming that there were already 1 or 2 artificial satellites orbiting the Earth. This was long before the launch of Sputnik 1, the first man-made satellite to be launched into orbit in 1957. Almost 6 years later, in February 1960, the North American Air Defense System detected a radar echo. It was a detection that sent them and the entire US military into a blind panic. They had detected a UFO in orbit around the Earth, an unknown satellite. None of their intelligence sources had any inkling that the Soviets could have launched a new satellite undetected. As the data came in, more startling facts were revealed. The UFO satellite was in a polar orbit, something that the USA had not been able to achieve. The size of the satellite was estimated to be in excess of 15 tons. It was not, however, a Soviet satellite. In fact, they too had detected the UFO satellite, and they too were also in a blind panic. The Americans dubbed the UFO satellite the Black Knight, after the British rocketry program of the day, although the Americans knew there was no way the British could have launched such a beast. The military attached so much importance to this mystery satellite that they created a special committee to gather information and study the satellite. The committee's findings were kept secret, and the sightings were forgotten. The UFO satellite was actually photographed on September 3rd, 1960, 7 months after it first appeared on radar, by a tracking camera at Grumman's Aircraft Factory on Long Island. It could sometimes be seen from the ground as a glowing red object. In 1963, American astronaut Gordon Cooper was launched into space on a 22-orbit mission. During his final orbit, Cooper reported a UFO. He could see a glowing green object ahead of him in space, which appeared to be closing in on his capsule. The tracking station Cooper was reporting to in Australia was able to pick the UFO up on radar. This event was reported by NBC, but reporters were forbidden to ask Cooper about the event on his landing. The official explanation is that an electrical malfunction in his capsule had caused high levels of carbon dioxide, which induced hallucinations. And they stuck to this explanation, even though the UFO was picked up on radar. Slightly earlier than this, in March 1960, Time magazine released an article explaining that a mysterious dark satellite had been detected in orbit by the US. The US once again went into a blind panic, thinking that it could be a surveillance satellite launched by the Russians. It took 2 whole weeks before an official explanation was issued. The explanation was that the evidence from both Air Force and Navy pointed to Discoverer 5, which was fired from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California on the 13th of August, 1959. Discoverer 5 had been orbiting for 7 months at this point. Surely they were well aware of its position by now? With the 2-week silence and poor explanation, everything pointed to a cover-up. In December 1998, Space Shuttle Endeavour was launched on a mission to dock with the International Space Station. All of these links are to the following photos that were taken during the mission. To see the rest of the photos, either go to the links which will be posted below, or see our other video on the Black Knight. The photos are labelled as space junk on NASA's website. They were also once labelled as a blanket which was lost on the mission, and even a seat. If they are any of these, then why keep changing the explanation? Many people believe that this is just another NASA cover-up, and that these are actually images of the Black Knight satellite. Whether these are actual pictures of the Black Knight or not, with all of the evidence contained in this video, we know that the Black Knight is real, and that it's probably still in orbit to this day. And being in polar orbit, we know that whoever put it there wanted it to be found. Whether NASA or anybody else has responded yet is not known, and probably won't be for a very long time.